want to go into detail on your feud with Magnum and your thoughts on the very unfortunate accident that happened to him?
You know, when I look at, that's probably the number one most talked about as far as my career and matches, and certainly Great American Bash with Rick and some of the matches with Dusty, and of course the Road Warriors, the War Games. I mean, there's a lot of fond memories I have. The best of 7 series with Magnum TA, I would have to say is the number one most talked about or brought up by the fans the most. The best of 7 series with Magnum, and you know, the first of its kind ever at the time, and really the whole psychology behind it, the idea of a best of 7, and then the way we did it in terms of a contract signing and his mom there. You know, he never, for those who've never seen that clip, I know it's out there, he didn't smarten his mom up to the wrestling business at all. So she's at this contract signing. Now, he knows what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. She didn't have a clue. And so as we're sitting there and Sandy Scott is kind of negotiating this back and forth, and of course the buzzword, the key word for him is when I call him a mama's boy. What, you some mama's boy? Is that, you know, that's his cue to come flying over the table. And he does. And then we're, you know, kind of, next thing you know, Ivan and I got him down, putting the boots to him. I mean, and his mom is like, I mean, she is like beside herself. She's like freaking out. Her mind's all real. And so to set it up that way, and then Bob Geigel to strip him of the title, and then to announce a best of 7 series was, I think, unprecedented at the time. And then to build it the way we did, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, and then 7th and final match. Once again in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Crockett, to his credit, dedicated the whole entire hour television, because he was going to tape it for television, and it was the whole hour of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. And it couldn't have worked out any better. It wasn't even planned this way, like with the camera angles and everything back then. They weren't as sophisticated as they are now. But to utilize the chain and for it to kind of slither out like a snake right in front of the cameras to where the referee didn't see that a chain was used. I mean, it all just fell into place. And of course the fans, oh my gosh, you want to talk about being livid. You know, here again, a Russian wearing the United States Heavyweight Championship was kind of unheard of, right? The idea of it. And I'm basing this on what fans told me over the years, feedback from fans, right?
Yeah.
And just because of how much they hated me. And then for him to have the accident. And at first I wasn't convinced when Dusty and Jimmy had just come back from a tour in Japan. We were in Philadelphia. I still remember it. They brought me in a little room, told me he had broke his neck. And it's wrestling, right? It's a work, right? you know, whatever. You know, no, it took them a few minutes to convince me. I'm like, oh my gosh, then kind of settled in. Then they said, well, we've got something else we want to share with you. And then they presented the idea of the superpower. Well, we weren't calling it the superpowers that night, but the idea of teaming up with Dusty, and you know, to take some time, think about it. So they gave me the ultimate decision on it, whether I wanted to do it or not. And again, by fan accounts, that angle was so strong. And the way it was kayfabed from essentially everyone is what got it over even that much more. And I think what really the kind of the ice on the cake or the cherry on top was Bill Apter, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, did 2 things. One, he did a headshot of me on the magazine cover, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, with like, like tear coming, I cry for Magnum TA. And then he and I and Dusty did one interview, and that's where we announced the formulation of the superpowers. And between that interview and that magazine cover and the angle that night, and again in Charlotte, I've had a lot of, my turn happened in Charlotte, number 7, best of 7 happened in Charlotte, Great American Bash against Flair was in Charlotte. Charlotte's a special place for me.